We'll call the meeting to order at this time. Time is 11:01. Good morning. And roll call. Mr. Adam is here. Believe Mr. Maryboy is online.
Correct. He had to attend a chapter meeting in Red Mesa. There was a pressing meeting that he had to attend to down there.
And I'm here, so two commissioner, which determines a quorum. So with that, we'll go to the invocation at this time. I will go ahead and provide that. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you and praise your position as King of all kings, and we also request that common sense be a blessing to us to make our decision in the most our agenda items in terms of commonality would be the main basis for our going forth. I pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
With that, reading and approving the agenda.
All right. Let's see. Can you guys hear me okay? Barely? No? Hey, Lyman, you check the volume on those mics. Are you on? I didn't hear anything at all. So your recording's not going to have anything. Okay, perfect. Is that better? Awesome. Okay, good. All right, for today's agenda, you have under the consent agenda item, you have the approval of August 2nd, 2022 commission meeting minutes. You have the approval of August 2nd, 2022 commission work meeting minutes. You have the approval of the check registers for July 29th through August 11th, 2022. You have the approval of the annual Library of Science and Technology Act Borrower Support Grant Contract. Then item number 5, approval of $44,475.57 in small purchases. You got $2,603.57 for a copy machine for the sheriff's office, $19,020 for Motorola Solutions for the sheriff's office, $11,852 for a tire changer in the road department, $1,000 for custom outdoor summit sponsorship with visitor services, and $10,000 for the San Juan County responsibility for B road collection and visitor services. Item number 6, you have presentation and approval of the 2021 fiscal year audit report by Larson and Company PC. You have John Hatterley's here today to give that presentation. Under business action items, you have the approval and acceptance of the land transfer to San Juan County for the Department of Transportation Federal Highway Administration, returning right-of-way back to the San Juan County. Presentation will be given by TJ Adair, our road superintendent, on that one. Item number 8, consideration and approval of a resolution to amend the 2017 County Resource Management Plan in accordance with Utah Code 17-27A404 for the management of public lands in San Juan County, Utah. That was presented by Nick last commission meeting, and you have the resolution approval for on this meeting. Item number 9, consideration and approval of the San Juan County Letter of Support for the Rural Grant application for the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity by Elaine, our Economic Development Visitor Services Director. Item number 10, consideration and approval of the Spanish Trails Estate Phase 1 Track Day amendment. This will be presented by Scott, our Planning and Zoning Director. Item 11, approval of intergovernmental agreement between San Juan County, Utah and the town of Bluff for the Building Resilient Inclusive Communities Grant. That'll be presented by Grant, our Public Health Director. Item 12, consideration and direction approval of insurance consultant of record. And that'll be presented by Anne Marie, our HR generalist. Item 13, consideration and approval of lease agreement with David Churchill for the lease of the county hangar located at Monticello Airport. I'll present that one, as well as the final item on our business action agenda is consideration and adoption of an ordinance that adopts the Board of Equalization standards of practice created and routinely amended by the State of Utah Property Tax Division for the administration of UCA 59-2-10. Its sequence that I mentioned, I'd present that one. Also, we need to convene as the Board of Equalization to hear and consider property dimension and value corrections from August 16th, 2022, and consideration of low-income abatements, homeowners tax credits, and veterans applications up to 8/16 as well. Then you have your commission reports at the end of the agenda. That today is your commission agenda.
Motion. Adopt the agenda.
Make a
That's
motion
right.
to adopt the agenda, or do you want me to second it?
Yeah, I'll motion.
Okay, I'll second it.
Okay. Going down, public comment. Any lists?
Okay, as a reminder for public comments, allowed 3 minutes for each public comment. Please make sure your comments are courteous and kind as you're making them. Also remember, try to avoid any repetitiveness if possible. So if somebody's already stated, the commission has heard you. This is also a time for you to tell the commissioners, give comments to your commissioners. It's not a dialogue time or a discussion and answer with the commissioners. With that being said, we'll take the audience members first and then go to those that are online wishing to make a public comment. If you're online wishing to make a public comment, there's a raise your hand function. If you highlight over your name and right click, you'll be able to raise your hand, and then we'll notice you when the time comes. And if not, then we'll open it up for you to unmute yourself if you're not able to find that feature and function on your phone or your computer. With that being said, we have Lisa Duran from Bluff, and just kind of state your name, where you're located within the county as well when you start. That just kind of helps for the minutes.
Good morning. My name is Liza Doran. I live in Bluff at Cow Canyon Trading Post. I've been a business owner in San Juan County for 36 years. I recently received the 2022 Notice of Property Valuation Tax Change. When I received it, I thought there was a typo because my property value in 2022 on the commercial side was increased more than tenfold. I am aware that property values and taxation has not been assessed for many years. What I hold at issue here and what I want to make known to the commissioners is that I do not appreciate the way this was conducted. I was not informed even when the assessor came to my house at 7:30 at night on May 4th. While I was closed. And I do not understand this huge increase, nor do I understand if this is a symbiotic relationship with a tax base in a county, that you would have consideration for people that work very hard at businesses in San Juan County and also are not completely, and it's not always a year-round business. This is a seasonal business in Bluff, and many of us struggle. Furthermore, no consideration has been taken into account for the COVID years that we have endured, and we are just starting to come out in recovery. So it adds more, it's like a slap in the face to me. And I hope that you can do something to implement a more just manner of this increase, because I don't see it as properly done. Thank you.
Okay, the next one on here is Amr.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Amr Tumay. I'm the owner of Desert Rose Resort in Bluff. I just wanted to add my voice to the multitude of business owners and residents of San Juan County. Where, just like Liza mentioned, our taxes have gone up 350 to 400%, which, the common thread, I think you'll notice that none of us are opposed to our taxes going up, is just the fact that they've gone up so high so fast. And to add insult to injury, we have to pay that tax bill before the end of the year, just as we're going into our winter season. When the appraiser did his appraisal, he based it on replacement value. So the value went up 400% when, if you take, let's say I want to sell my place, our income dropped by 85%. And to evaluate a business, it doesn't matter that the tile in my showers is made in Italy, which it is. It doesn't matter that the wood floor in the lobby is hand-hewn by the Amish, which it is. The only thing an appraiser will look at is your revenue. You live and die by the numbers. And that's where I think the appraiser made a huge mistake in evaluating these businesses. I think over the next few years, if that increase doesn't happen in 1 year, if it's prorated over 3 to 4 years, I think that would be an easier blow than what we have right now. So I appreciate your time.
Thanks. Okay, the next one, it looks like Nancy Sumner.
Who?
Nancy Sumner. Okay, awesome.
Hi. My family's been in business since 1961 in Bluff. Nancy Sumner. Yeah, my family's been in business since 1961. A very long time. And, like they said, we've had a real hardship in Bluff. We were closed down during COVID 2020 for 2 months, and we will never get that revenue back. That's just lost revenue. And we've tried to come out of it, but even 2021 wasn't good because it's still COVID. So we've really been struggling. This is the first year we've had any Europeans come in at all, and that's still minimal, but we still haven't had anything like that. So it's really a shock to find out that these property taxes have climbed up so much on commercial in 1 year. It just doesn't seem fair. And like I said, a lot of my businesses were built 1961, 1965, so they've been here a long time. Anyway, if there would be consideration taken due to this, it would be appreciated.
What's the name of your business?
The Dairy Cafe, Cottonwood RV Park, and it was Bluff Motors.
Thanks, Nancy. Okay, I don't have anybody else signed up here in the audience. Is there anybody online wishing to make a public comment for this? I'm not seeing anybody online. with their hands raised, go ahead and mute yourself. Looks like it's mostly just staff or vendors. All right, commissioners, that's your
Can I
public.
just ask a
Yeah,
question?
go ahead.
Amr, do you know, did every business in Bluff receive a similar assessment?
I believe so. I think
Okay.
the average is probably about 400%.
Okay.
In this case, tenfold.
It's all yours, commissioners. That was the end of public comment for today.
Okay, thank you. Going back to the agenda, consent items,
Let me just say one
Mr. Adams.
thing. It sounds to me like all of the commercial properties in Bluff received a similar assessment. And I just want to make sure that they know what the process is to challenge that assessment. My understanding is there will be a Board of Equalization this month. And so you need to either contact Rick and find out when that, contact Lyman. Do you know what the date of that is, Lyman?
I do. It's Monday and Tuesday, so I think it's the 28th and 29th.
28th and 29th?
And we have sessions or meetings in the afternoon and on each day.
Okay, and do they need to make an appointment?
Yes,
So they call your office to make an appointment?
yes, and a
If-
number have already.
Okay, if you want to challenge the assessed valuation of your property, that will be done on Monday, the 28th and 29th. Is that in this building?
Yes,
And you make an appointment with the clerk's office, and a couple of things. It's best if you come to that meeting with some kind of clear evidence why you think your property's been valued too high. That could be done by an appraisal, or an appraisal of a neighbor, or a recent sale of the property. There's a number of things that you can produce at that meeting to say, my property is overvalued. I think there's a number of ways appraisals can be done. I think one is the income method. One is comparables. What's the other one, Rick?
The cost.
The cost
Replacement.
could also be evidence. You bring that to the Board of Equalization, and I don't know how other to say it. You plead your case. You come and plead your case to the
Hearing officer there.
hearing officer.
hearing officer, right, to the hearing officer. And I'm not sure that the commissioners themselves can intercede in this process. But the best chance you have to get your property's values lowered is with the hearing officer on the 28th and 29th.
Yes.
Have I left anything out? Okay, maybe Rick can explain a little more.
It's the 29th and 30th, Commissioner.
29th and 30th?
Yes,
It's a Monday and Tuesday?
yes,
Okay.
correct.
Because of this process going on, I'm leaving town. So no, but
The hearing officer does it.
Elmer, do you have a question?
I was going to say I have an appointment on the 30th.
Okay,
Aside from going out and get an appraisal, but even if I personally go and get an appraisal, they are going to base it on business income. For insurance purposes, yes, it'd be
Okay.
replacement cost. But replacement cost right now, a stick of lumber that cost me $2
Yeah.
to build a place, it's $80 right now. So, I mean, it's-
Absolutely.
well, I'm thinking, Elmer, because we just got through with COVID, probably your your income has been down on your properties. And I would think that that'd be your best way to tell the hearing officer why your taxes are too high.
And that is my approach. But
Yeah.
aside from getting an appraisal and having somebody.
An appraisal on a commercial property is going to be very expensive. So that might not be your best evidence.
But in your flow chart right here, right here it says that, the Board of Equalization will accept the last valuation of the property unless the county assessor determines otherwise.
Okay.
So they're leaving it really to the county, and the county assessor is a direct report to the commissioners.
Yeah.
Even though we'd like to leave everything in the state's court or the, Board of Equalization, the way this reads to me is the county really is in charge of that, unless I'm misreading this.
Yeah, in the language it clarifies that you still have the burden of proof on you as the business owner. Once you are able to show that, then the county has the burden of proof to show you how we got to that value, and that's the hearing officer will be able to go over that with you. But the only thing that the county can adjust, and it's stated in these rules, hopefully they adopt today, is if there's a error.
So the way I look at the hearing officer is kind of like a judge, and I'll mix church and state here a little bit. It's like Solomon. He's going to divide the baby one with the other or something. So your best bet is to try and convince the hearing officer that the evidence you're presenting, which I think would go back to your COVID years, is that your income has really decreased over the last 2 or 3 years because of COVID, and then maybe you can convince the hearing officer that this might be better in a several year approach, a little bit at a time or something like that. I don't know how to help you. I'm just trying to. I'm trying to explain the process so you have a fair chance when you come to the hearing officer. So I don't know if that's been helpful or not, but I appreciate you knowing what your struggles are. I feel your pain. So, okay, sorry.
Thank you. That's okay. Back to
The consent agenda.
Consent agenda.
consent agenda.
Read it.
So you had a second, right?
No.
There's no motion yet.
Okay. Do you want him to read it? Or do you want me to make a motion? I'm ready to make a motion.
Motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion. We approve the consent agenda. First 5 items.
Second. Any question? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye also. Opposed, nay. There being none, 2 in favor, 0 opposed. Motion carries. Recognition, presentation, and information items.
All right. This one here is our 2021 fiscal year audit report. John, this is all you. Give us the good news with a little bit of bad, hopefully more sugar than spice. Thanks, John.
I think you guys all have electronic copies. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
All right.
Copy that.
If you've had a chance to go through them, I'll just start with the audit report. A couple of things I need to go over this year, more than we did in prior years, just because the audit report's changed. Apparently everybody likes to know what the opinion is, so they put the opinion first now. So our opinion on the financial statements is in the first 2 paragraphs of the audit report. It's an unmodified or an unqualified opinion. That's a clean opinion. I don't know why we unqualify something if it's good, but we're backwards. So the next section is our basis for opinions. So this describes the credentials and the guidance that we have to follow. both in government auditing standards and then generally accepted auditing standards. So there are rules and things that we have to follow. Responsibilities of management. So you are responsible for the financial statements and the application of accounting principles. The second paragraph under that section is a new one this year. If there is events or circumstances that you identify in your financial statements or conditions in the county that would prohibit you from continuing as a going concern, then you have to do an analysis on that internally to identify those and then come up with a plan to either rectify them or what you're going to do to continue to operate. The next section is also a new section. It's our responsibility. It's worded a little bit different than it has been in the past. Our objectives are primarily on your financial statements. So we have to get reasonable assurance that your financial statements are materially correct. The reason why we say reasonable assurance is there's nothing perfect in this world. It's kind of our, I guess, disclaimer, if you would. We go through the financial statements, each balance in each opinion unit. So every opinion unit on the financial statements or every column gets its own opinion. And we test those balances. We don't drill down to every single transaction that happens in the county during the year. We base our test work on materiality, so each opinion unit also gets its own materiality to make sure that the balances are correct within a certain range. The risk of not detecting a material misstatement is increased if there's fraud happening, because fraud can include collusion, miscoded information, intentional omissions. So we get a letter signed, and we'll talk more about this later on, but we get a representation letter signed by management at the end of the engagement. It's kind of a full disclosure that you've given us all the information that we've requested or that we need, that you've been open and honest in your communication. Because in order to find material misstatements, if you're hiding information or if you're not disclosing information, then it makes it harder for us to find that the information or potential mistakes in the financial statements. The next section are things that we're required to include in the audit report now, and these are things that we have to do and have always done in our engagements, but now we're required to disclose them in the audit report. We're required to exercise professional judgment and professional skepticism. So I explain that as trust but verify. We don't come in with accusing you, trying to find things wrong. We trust you, but we have to verify the information that we've been given. We have to identify the risk of material misstatements, and we'll talk more about significant risks when we get to the management letter. We look at your internal controls. We try to understand what controls you have in place, and we make sure that they're functioning appropriately. But we do not give an opinion on your internal controls. We have to evaluate the appropriateness of your treatment of accounting principles, especially new accounting principles that have recently come out or are going to come out. And then the last thing is we have to, in our judgment, if we identify things in the financial statements that would prohibit you from continuing as a going concern beyond a reasonable amount of time, we also have to do that analysis, and we have to document what we've done to analyze where you're at financially. And one of the first things that we would do is ask you for your analysis. And that period of time typically is 12 months from the date we issued the report. So we issued the report in June. So, up until next June, if there's conditions that we say, okay, well, maybe the county can't continue to operate financially beyond, up until next June, then that's when we would require the analysis. Just remember there are certain parts of the financial statements that do not fall under our opinion, and that's the management discussion analysis. We call it the MD&A, and that immediately follows the audit report. And then there's a section called required supplementary information, and that contains the 10-year schedules for your Utah retirement systems, some budget schedules, things like that. They're not required to, they're not a part of the basic financial statements, but they're required to be with the financial statements to give them more readability and more understandability. So if you don't like getting lost in the weeds of the numbers, the management discussion analysis is a good section to read on where the county's at compared to last year. There's more dialogue rather than just raw numbers, so it's easier to understand. And then supplementary information, this would be your combining statements of your non-major funds. So it's all the non-major funds broken out into each individual fund. So you can see the detail, and also your schedule of expenditures of federal awards. You guys are very familiar with those since you have a single audit every year. Those are considered supplementary information, meaning that there's something or some party who is requesting that they accompany the financial statements. So with the combining statements, that's your decision to put those in there so that you can see the detail. With the schedule of awards, that's required by the uniform guidance, and they do fall under our opinion, but it's an in relation opinion to the financial statements. So that always follows the financial statement opinion. All right. Are you bored yet? Bruce has fallen asleep. All right, page 67. So these ones I'll go over pretty quick since they're pretty standard and they haven't changed. So this is our report that we're required to issue because we did your audit in accordance with government auditing standards. This just reiterates that we looked at your internal controls and we identify any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. However, there were none that we need to disclose as part of this letter. The next report on page 69 is the one that we're required to issue for the state auditor. The compliance requirements that were applicable to the county this year were your budgetary compliance, your fund balance, justice court compliance, restricted taxes, and the fraud risk assessment. Let's see. I know that there was one insignificant finding that we'll talk about, but as far as anything material that we would report as part of this letter, there was none, so it's an unqualified or an unmodified opinion as well. The next report on page 71 is the single audit report that we're required to submit to the federal government. And this one also changed format. So once again, the opinion is first, and then it follows the same format as the audit report. Other than the difference between this and the audit report is this one is looking at your compliance and internal control over each major program. So we have to identify all of your federal award programs that you received during the year, and then we run analysis on those grants. They can either be a major program based on the amount of money that you spent in that one grant. It could be major based on a federal agency letting us know that that's a high-risk grant because it's either a new grant or they have significant problems with that grant. So then we're required to test that. So all those things go into how we pick major programs. Let's see, the one major program that you had this year was the remaining part of the coronavirus money or the CARES Act grant. I'm assuming that this year it will probably be the ARPA money. Those are kind of the two major grants that have come out in the last couple of years that they're considering significant, or that you've received sufficient enough money that they are major in and of themselves. All right. So if you want to turn to the stapled together page, the reason why this one is separate and it's stapled together is this is communication to the commission and to management. This does not follow along with the financial statements. So if you have lenders or creditors that are asking for financial statements, bondholders, this letter does not accompany. This is just communication that we're required to communicate to you. This one also kind of changed formats this year, the required communication. So I'll just run through them real quick. The plan scope and timing of the audit, that was communicated in our engagement letter. Compliance with ethical requirements. So we're required to maintain ethical standards and maintain independence, and that's on us. So that's nothing that you guys need to be involved in, but we're required to let you know that we do have internal controls to make sure that we're following our ethical standards as well as our independence. Significant risks identified. I know Mac had a question on this one. So these are the significant risks that we identified as part of your engagement. And just to let everybody know, these are not specific to San Juan County individually. These are significant risks that we identify in every engagement that we perform on a government. Improper revenue recognition. This one is significant in any type of engagement, whether it's a public company, a for-profit company, nonprofit, government. Anytime that you're dealing with revenue, the reason why is because fraud typically happens in revenue. So the reason why is because if you're a for-profit company, you want to have your earnings be as high as possible for your shareholders or bondholders, whether it's a public company. This was kind of the Enron thing where they manipulated revenue. It was fraudulent. So nobody was stealing money, but they were misrepresenting the numbers to make them look better. And so therefore what came out of that was now we have a significant risk that we have to identify in every engagement. And we have to perform tests around each of one of these. So the reasons why we identify them is we perform specific tests to address these risks. Cash disbursements, as you guys are well aware, anytime you see somebody in the news, it's typically somebody stole money from the government, whether it's spending on a credit card, whether it's straight up taking cash, paying their personal bills, things like that. So we identify in every engagement that cash disbursements is a significant risk. So we perform, once again, tests directly related to your cash disbursements. And then management bias and management's ability to override controls. This is an inherent limitation on internal controls. So if you've heard me teach classes on internal controls, we talk a lot about this. All of your transactions in your all of your financial statement system should be based on transactions. So as you get a PO, then that turns into an invoice, which is recorded in the system. When that comes due, then you pay that check, somebody signs the check, and the money goes out, and that's all recorded transactions step by step in the financial statement system. Now, if there's a mistake that gets made, now somebody has to go create a journal entry to say, well, that came out of the wrong account or it was coded into the wrong system. So I'm going to move that balance from this account to another account. So that's not based on a specific transaction. That is overriding controls. So you have to have that ability to correct mistakes, to create journal entries. However, that can be used to also conceal misappropriation. So that's why it's an inherent limitation. So we make sure that, especially with journal entries, things like that, that because management has the ability to override controls, that there's also controls in place that are reviewing everything that's being done. So specifically with journal entries, we look at all the journal entries that are done during the year and make sure that they're appropriate. All right. Qualitative aspects of the significant accounting practices. We make sure, like I said, we look at your accounting policies, make sure that you're following correct guidance, and nothing has come to our attention that you're not following GAAP. Significant difficulties in performing the audit. We have not had any difficulties in getting information. I really appreciate that. And when my staff come back to me and tell me that they have all the information they need, that we don't have to wait for information, that everybody was forthcoming and happy to deal with, requests that we have because we know that we're kind of cumbersome sometimes in the things that we ask. That makes me feel really good. If there was concerns, then the risk hairs on my neck start standing up saying, okay, why aren't we getting the information? Why is it taking so long? So that's when issues come up. Uncorrected and corrected misstatements. So like I said, we base our audits on materiality. So if we find in our test work a different calculated balance than what is in your financial statement records, we look at the difference. And if that difference is above a certain level, then we will request that you make an adjustment. However, if it's below materiality, you're not required to make that adjustment. And if there are any of those, then we're required to disclose those. So if your accounts payable says it's 100,000 and we calculate 94,000, so that to us it's greater than significant, but it's not material. So we would say, well, to be accurate, you should probably reduce your accounts payable. However, you don't have to make any changes to your system, and we would just record that audit difference, but your financial statements are still correct. All right, disagreements with management. This is kind of related to difficulties. There weren't any disagreements. Management representation, we've talked about those. Consultations with other accountants. If there is an issue that arises, you're more than welcome to go out and talk to a third-party accountant or an auditor. The only request is that we know that you're talking to somebody and then we have access to that same person so that we can give our understanding, and then everybody can come together and we can move on with the audit. All right. The most exciting part, the findings, that's what everybody wants to know about. There weren't any internal control findings that we identified this year. Not saying that you can't make improvements. We do talk to management about things that we feel like you can improve on, but they're not. A lot of times they don't warrant a finding of a significant nature. The only state compliance finding this year was deficit fund balance. So Utah code says that if a deficit in any fund is created, so meaning you, in business terms, it means you have negative equity in that fund. So if your fund balance goes in the negative, it's okay that it's created, but what you have to do is budget the next period to reduce that deficit by 5%. So the two funds that are in the deficit position are the tort liability fund and the EMS fund, and neither one of those decreased this year by 5%, the required 5%, and that's 5% of the revenue of that fund. So EMS, we understand the situation's there, but in your budget, you need to so in your 2022 budget, if you amend your budget, you need to have a line item that says, budget or deficit reduction, and it has to be 5%. Therefore, you have to at least have a 5% net income in that fund during the year. Tort liability, I think that one's going to be a mere transfer of funds, because that's how that one makes money. So status of findings last year, the deficit fund balance. So this is the second year of the deficit fund balance. So I'm sure that Seth is going to be sending you a letter saying, what are you going to do to correct this? Just make sure it gets corrected. Budgetary compliance. Last year there were a couple of funds that were over budget. However, that was not a problem this year. So, any questions?
What's your interaction with the state auditor?
You should.
Okay, I won't ask it.
No, you can. This is a public meeting. Let's just say he's contacting my phone, so therefore he's my friend, right?
Yeah.
No, I talk to them on an ongoing basis. Well, let's say I argue with them on an ongoing basis. What do you need to know, Bruce?
I just keep getting notifications from him that we need to turn in certain things, and I just wonder if they ever contact you about any questions concerning the county budget.
Mm-mm. No, we don't ever get specifics on any of our clients. Okay. I'll usually get called to the principal's office if they feel like I'm not being appropriate, but the tables get turned really quick. In fact, we just had probably an 8-hour discussion on really local governments and our independence, because we have to have, like I said, we maintain our own independence, and we're big enough that we have our own controls that we can maintain independence. However, there are smaller CPA firms that cannot abide by the new, and they're not new rules, they just clarified our independence rules. And so there's that struggle, and then also on the local government side of you preparing your own financial statements. There's not really an entity in the whole state that can prepare their own set of government financial statements. If it was just a balance sheet and a profit and loss and a cash flow statement, I'd push back and say, you got to at least give me that. Yeah. But governmental financial statements are not, they're a monster, and it's hard enough for me to train my own guys who do it all the time to draft financial statements. So to make you put together a whole set of fund financial statements, GASB 34 statements, and your notes, that's a cumbersome task for when Lyman probably doesn't have time to spend, it takes my guys probably 30 to 40 hours to do a set of financial statements. So yes, I talk to them on an ongoing basis. If they do reach out to you, then talk to Mac or Lyman and you guys reach out to me, because I don't mind calling and talking to them. I know who I can talk to that I can get a straight answer.
Well, Lyman and Mac get forwarded on everything he ever sends me.
I think what there is there.
Yeah.
So
They have the website. If you don't upload a website, it'll send a reminder if you're past an upload. It'll send you,
Mhm.
hey, this is due. I think those are the emails. Those are typically the ones we see.
Transparency.
And so, yeah, on
The only thing that we're
transparency.gov.
copied on are the audit alerts that they send out to you guys. We also get copied on those. And I
Yeah.
think that you just probably got one on the modified approach for infrastructure reporting.
Mhm.
So that one was my fault.
Okay.
So
Yeah, no, you've been great helping us make sure
that one,
everything's
just make
uploaded.
sure that you have, and when I get your information from the road, I know that they're using a system. So that audit alert really was because there were counties who were not using anything
Yeah.
and just giving it to us in Excel, and it's in somebody's head. And so when I actually gave them a finding to say, well, you either get in compliance or you can't do it anymore. Like, this is what GAP says. They pushed back and they called the state auditor, and the state auditor said, well, yeah, you can just use Excel. So that was the response I got, so that they weren't doing anything wrong. So I called the state auditor's office and said, that's not
It's not
what
state
the
code
rules
says.
say.
Yeah.
So that one was my fault. So sorry about that. You got an extra audit alert. But yeah, if you have questions or concerns, reach out to me, because I do contact them on an ongoing basis. They know me very well.
I've offered to take him on a long horseback ride in San Juan County, but he turned me down.
I'll go with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
With our deficit spend, commissioners, that was what we had adjusted in our mid-year budget, is those adjustments for the deficit spend for EMS and the deficit spend on our tort liability. And so you've seen those adjustments two weeks ago, last month, when we fixed those. So everything has been corrected already.
Yep. And everything's been submitted. We've submitted it to the federal government, so everything's done. Sorry, we're a little bit late getting here. Had things I was teaching at in July, so I couldn't get to the July meeting, so I apologize for that. But we appreciate you guys letting us come down and visit and go over this. I know it's not the most exciting.
We're surprised you got through the flood on the highway.
Which flood?
Did you see mud across the road?
We had a flood.
You know where I live, right, Bruce? That's like
Yeah,
that's an ongoing problem for me. So
treacherous coming
I
through
just
Spanish
push the
Fork
gas and
Canyon.
close my eyes. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, John.
Mr. Adams?
Appreciate it.
I'm still thinking about Bluff. I want to make another comment.
Go ahead.
When the county collects taxes, we collect 100% of what is assessed or what you have to pay, but that money isn't spent by the county. And I'm going to be a little bit off on my figures. 66% of that money goes to the school district. About 18% of it goes to the cities, and the rest of it stays with the county. So the county itself gets a very small portion of the taxes we collect. Is that right, Rick? So if you want to get mad at somebody, get mad at the school district. I'm going to work all this meeting, try and make you feel good.
Going for a horseback ride.
So, yeah, a
you
long
go.
one, just a short one, not a long one. That's exactly, yeah. Commissioners, we do need a motion to accept that.
So-
For,
16% comes to the county.
Oh, yeah, maybe 16%
Yeah.
is all the county gets out of the whole thing. Does that make you feel good?
No,
yeah.
we should
I'm
be
not
getting the 66%.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he
If
wants
we were
more.
getting the 66, we'd lower it, right?
Yeah, yep.
Right,
Okay.
without question.
Yeah.
Motion?
Motion to accept the presentation by Larson and Company for the 2021 fiscal year audit report.
Second. Any question? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye also. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 2 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay.
Even disappeared already.
I know.
Yeah. He's trying to get back before the road floods again.
It's already flooded in Colorado River.
Yeah.
Next, business action item.
Okay, we have the approval and acceptance of the land transfer to San Juan County from the Department of Transportation Federal Highway Administration, returning a right-of-way back to San Juan County. TJ, go ahead and give us a spiel. Speaking of
Yeah.
flooding.
I gotta hurry too. I got some flooding. Damn it.
Speaking of flooding.
So this is up on the LaSalle Loop Road. There's a grant that has been applied for. We were supposed to start on this project last year. They pushed the funding back to this year. We just got notice that they're pushing it back another year. But this is a process in it for our right-of-ways. And years ago, the right-of-way was given to Grand County for some federal projects they were trying to do. It's transferring it back to San Juan County. It originally was with San Juan County. We were neighborly back in the 80s, transferred it. We need it back to finish all the federal program on this road. So that's basically what this is just accepting that we're getting it back from the federal highway. So it's a pretty simple thing. Our attorneys have looked over it before Brittany. I don't know if you've looked over this one or not, but this has been in the works for like 2 years, trying to get the Forest Service, Grand, San Juan counties, everybody on board. So it's been a lengthy process, but this is what it is, and they've already signed it to accept it. So that's all we're needing from you.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion to complete this request. Brittany, do you need some time to review it, or are you okay with it?
I think Alex has seen it, so I'm okay.
Okay. Okay, so I was going to say we'll make it subject to your review if you want.
That's okay.
Okay. Okay, that's my motion.
Okay, second. Any further question? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye also.
Thank you.
Opposed, nay.
Keep the roads open, will you?
Okay, motion carries, 2 in favor, 0 opposed. Next, item 8.
The road's there. All right, we got consideration and approval of the resolution to amend the 2017 County Resource Management Plan in accordance with Utah Code for the Management of Public Lands in San Juan County, Utah.
Good morning. Well, Commissioners, you remember 2 weeks ago, the last meeting, you unanimously approved the amendments to the County Resource Management Plan. And the resolution before you basically just formalizes that vote that you made. And once this resolution is passed, we can attach that and insert that with our county resource management plan. So the resolution is before you for your action.
Nick, this is done because of legislation in 2021 by the legislature asking the counties to amend their plans.
That's correct.
And now will these plans be submitted to the public land offices to Red Johnson, or do we just keep them here?
No, they'll be submitted to the Public Lands Policy Coordinating Office, and then they will insert all of those county amendments into the state resource management plan.
Okay. You ready for a motion?
Motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the amendments to the 2017 County Resource Management Plan in accordance with Utah Code. And I assume, Brittany, you've had a chance to look these over or not? Do you need, okay. All right, that's my motion.
Second. Any further question? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye also. Opposed, nay. Motion carries, 2 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay,
Thanks for that work, Nick. I know it's what keeps your life busy and interesting.
Right. Thank you.
Get a gold star. The state will appreciate you, I'm sure. We'll hear from them. Oh, dear.
Number 9.
Number 9, consideration and approval of the San Juan County letter of support for the rural grant application from Go Ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The San Juan County Economic Development Visitor Services Office and Director, myself, are requesting approval of the letter of support so that I can apply for the $200,000 rural grant from the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. This grant will provide San Juan County businesses with an opportunity to apply for grant funding later this year once we receive the funds, if we're granted. And also support participation at the Grand County Business Summit that happens in February. And we are starting our own San Juan County Business Conference and Expo. We'll have our first one in November, so the funds will come out of that. We also it will provide 2 scholarships as we did this year for 2 students from San Juan County. They each got $1,500. They were awarded. And then we are hiring a Vista volunteer for a year, which is about $4,000 annually, which is a pretty good deal. And then paying for the economic development dashboard, which I've finally gotten together, that provides all the statistics that the SED board and the Tourism Tax Advisory Board can be able to use to make decisions on programs that we bring forth. And it'll also provide support for grant writing for San Juan County. So I'm happy to say that this past January, we allocated $173,000 to local businesses throughout San Juan County. And it is amazing to see how those individual business owners either bought equipment to improve their services, hired people to keep them employed through the winter season. But all of that money that we gave away is then going to generate revenue that will come back into San Juan County. And that really is wonderful. So I hope that we'll be able to do the same thing. So I'm asking for a letter of support for the $200,000 from the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, and if we can afford it in next year's budget, to add $47,000 because there is no required match this year, but to take $47,000 and add to it so that we'll have a total of $247,000. Any questions?
So move for approval.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve San Juan County sending a letter of support to the governor for this request. And I'd also, let's do that first, then I have another comment.
Okay. I second with the question. The fundings that you have indicated going to the local business, any of that going to the reservation business?
Money went to Lewis Williams with his outfitting company, and he was a recipient of it. So businesses in Monticello, Blanding received funding, and Bluff received funding, and then Lewis Williams got his funding so that he has an outfitting business. I have a list specifically because people can submit their applications. We didn't get a lot of applications, and I reached out to the different chapters, and I would hope that this year, because of the success of last year, that they will apply. But it's for individuals that have businesses that can apply. There is an application process, and then the community or the county economic development board goes through the applications and votes on what applications will be funded and then how much. We did have requests for $1 million, which we only had 173,000. So I think Lewis was the only one Native American, but the 2 students that got the $1,500 were both Native American, one from Monument Valley and one from White Mesa.
Mm-hmm. Like to receive your list of
Sure.
recipients. Yeah.
Yep, I can do that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
With that, any further comment or question? If not, then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries, 2 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you.
I do want to make comment about Elaine and her office. I think they've been very active in looking for grant opportunities for San Juan County and been very helpful in trying to prop up the businesses with grants as well. And I just really appreciate what Elaine's doing in the economic development and the visitor services. So
Well,
thank you, Elaine.
Thank you. I would ask one thing. If the legislators could go back next year when they meet, and if the governor's office of economic development opportunity could fund rural areas such as ours with more than $200,000. I really think, everybody's allotted $200,000. It doesn't matter what county you're from. And I really think our county, we should get a larger allotment. Rural counties need to get more, and we're as rural as you get. So I'm going to fight.
Do you know Laura Hanson
Laura Hanson
with the governor's office? I had a long conversation with her about this very item last week.
Did you?
Yeah, and she's a new member of the CIB board, and so she called me and wanted to talk about funding for rural counties, and this very point came up.
I mean, with the amount of poverty and levels that we are at, we stand out from the other 28 counties. The legislators need to take a good hard look at San Juan County. We're not lumped in with all the rest of them. So anything that we could do to have and we are a fourth class county, which blows my mind because of our $15,000 population, when Grand County is, a fifth class county. We don't have the money to do a lot of the matches. So something needs to be looked at. I think they need to look past the population, and I would be happy to speak for our county on those terms. Poor Mac has to deal
Screaming.
with
I
me.
agree.
But I really think that the legislators need to look, at our little corner of the world down here. So anyway, thank you.
We need to take them on a horseback ride too.
I would love to. I would love
A
to.
long one.
We'll get Almer and the mayor and legislators, and we'll take a
I
horseback
haven't gone
ride.
a horse in a long time, but I'm willing to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Elaine.
Next,
Okay, consideration and approval of the Spanish Trails Estate Phase 1 Tract A amended.
All right, yeah, this is a subdivision amendment up in Spanish Valley, Spanish Trail Estates subdivision. You can see on the map, it's a triangular shaped piece that they're carving off a piece of it. The remaining lots are one's 0.41 acres and one's 0.44, so they're both close to a half acre. Basically building a small house on the new lot A1. So for building a new house for a family member is what they're doing. So it'll be a aging family member, small
So
home.
we approving both tracks, lot A1 and lot A2.
So this was tract A, the whole thing, and they're just splitting it up. So
They're dividing it.
they're dividing it. Yeah, so it's an amendment to the subdivision. This has gone through preliminary plat through the planning commission. Well, before the preliminary plat, staff reviewed it. Preliminary plat was reviewed on July 14th, and the planning commission approved the final plat on August 11th, or recommended approval for the final plat on
But
August.
it meets the lot size requirements and all of the
Setbacks
and stuff.
Yeah, the setbacks will be a little tight. They're shown on here, but they just want it. They're looking for like an 800 square foot house, so they'll be able to put it on the lot, but it'll be just a small home. So
I'll make a motion to approve this amendment on Spanish Trails Estates Phase 1 Tract A.
okay. Second question. There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. 2 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. 11,
Okay, we have the approval of intergovernment agreement between San Juan County, Utah and the town of Bluff for the Building Resilient Inclusive Communities Grant. Let's see, we have a grant.
Hello, commissioners. My apologies for not being able to attend in person, but I appreciate the technology here that allows me to connect. I'm also honored to share parts of the meeting here with representatives from Bluff, since this proposal here actually helps us address in a short-term way the economic impact of the pandemic. The Building Resilient and Inclusive Communities grant that we've received and that the county has already approved, part of that is to improve what we call food insecurity or consistent hunger needs. And one of those approaches that they recommend is improving the capacity and reach of local food pantries. And through our health promotion partnerships with through San Juan Public Health, we've noticed how Bluff Food Pantry has some unique approaches, really looking at the nutritional value of food that's donated, as well as talking with local residents to find out how culturally appropriate or how the foods can be adapted to cultural tastes. And so we've determined to channel some of our funding. It's federally reimbursed funding, but channel that funding to the town of Bluff to help support their food pantry. There's 3 parts to this. 1, increasing the advertising, be it through their website, newspapers, through Navajo Nation, San Juan Record, for example, and flyers. And that can be an opportunity to advertise other food pantries as well, but then also funding this unique adaptation of in a cultural way and in a nutritional way. Some of that includes increasing partnerships with Navajo Services and Navajo Nation Special Diabetes Program, again, to really hone in on that goal of being culturally appropriate and nutritionally fitting for local needs. And so, yeah, that's kind of an overview of the goal here and the objectives, with $10,000 being available for this. And MAC worked with us to adapt the local Interlocal Cooperation Act to have this be a partnership between the county and the town of Bluff. I welcome any questions or comments about this. Oh, and the timeline here also is through the end of the calendar year. So functions a bit as a pilot project too, where we can expand on this hopefully in the future.
need a motion?
Maybe before we go to the motion, Willie, I wonder if we ought to hear from the mayor or the town of Bluff on this request.
Okay.
She traveled all the way from Bluff by covered wagon this morning.
I was waiting for my horseback ride.
Okay. Pull that mic down.
She wants to go, huh?
Thank you, Mayor.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. As you may or may not be aware, the food pantry is run by an individual who is not a part of our government structure, but we provide the space. And so Ginny Burns operates the food pantry. I'm going to just toss out a number that I'm pretty sure is correct. In the last distribution, which would have been the first Saturday of the month, or Friday of the month, they served around 200, between 180 and 200 families and people, most of whom reside on the Navajo Nation. And so with Ginny's assistance the last 4 years, and during the pandemic, the town itself pushed out a lot of food. She's in great need of having things other than food to be able to support this project, because right now everything is funded through Ginny and her husband for donations, which are coming, but they're slow and people don't have a lot of money to donate. So we appreciate the $10,000 grant if you approve it. It will go to very good use, and if you're in the Bluff area on the first Friday of the month, if you go by the old Bluff Elementary School, you can pick up food for people who need it and distribute it. But we really appreciate it, and Dr. Sonata and Ms. Benally were really helpful at helping to create the partnership with Max so we could get the right paperwork done. Any questions?
With that explanation, I'll make a motion that we approve it.
Second. Any further question? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye also. Opposed? Nay? Motion
Thank you,
carries
Commissioners. Thank you, Mayor.
3-0 opposed.
Thank you,
Next,
Grant.
Thank you, Grant.
You're all very welcome. Thank you, Mac, too.
12,
Okay, item 12, consideration and direction approval of insurance consultant of record, Anne Marie.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. How are you? Good. So, a little bit of a backstory here. In April of this year, I went to a conference that was put on by NFP. They presented some very interesting statistics on health insurance costs and kind of the direction they've been going, and pharmacy costs, how they've gone through the roof. I had a consultant from NFP at the same table I was at and mentioned that our insurance costs were, or our pharmacy costs were crazy high. He says, we can help you with that. And that started my conversations with NFP. I've had a good interaction with them, and they provided us with projected savings. It's the next page, Mac. I put them in there backwards. Projected savings of $220,000 a year. $153,000 of that is pharmacy alone, so that they can do through their pharmacy coalition. After meeting with them last Wednesday and they provided us these projections, I made a call to GBS, our current insurance consultant, and he sent me these numbers, which are actual numbers from when he went to market 2 years ago. And so NFP conservatively is projecting just a pharmacy savings of 25%. And GBS with actual numbers brought us savings of anywhere between 4% and 23% based on going to market 2 years ago. So if you had asked me last Thursday which consultant of record I would like to go with, I would have said NFP. Getting these numbers from GBS on Friday, I don't have a definitive answer for you. I did call, though, and speak with Jonathan Little from Washington County and Jennifer Bradbury from Iron County. NFP is their consultant of record. They are very happy with them. They've gone out. They feel like they go to bat for them. They feel like they do everything they need to do. They're very responsive on the back end. On the other hand, I called Saratoga Springs City as well, who left NFP because they felt they weren't as responsive as GBS. So I need some direction. Do we change our insurance consultant of record, or do we stay with GBS? The savings with the numbers in front of me, just comparing pharmacy, is about $12,000 a year through NFP. That's not putting any of the other figures in there because the only thing I have from GBS is pharmacy.
And those are 2-year-old numbers?
They're 2-year-old numbers, yeah.
So we don't know.
So we don't know exactly what could, if they go to market. I spoke with Joe with GBS. He talked with PEHP about carve out and going with a pool, and they can do that in complete transparency. He said PEHP told him he was worried about their coverage out of state. So he did let me know that. So if we're looking at making a change, those are things we need to look at.
PHP is $12,000 savings above what? And is it MPS?
No, so NFP provided us with savings of $12,000 more than what GBS projected 2 years ago. So higher savings through NFP based on these numbers. I said I talked with them. They can both, through Regents, they don't think they can carve out our pharmacy, period, either company. We're just not big enough to be able to do that. PEHP, both of them have talked to PEHP. They can carve out our pharmacy. So if we chose to make that move, we could do that. Whatever we do, we're going to have to.
May have trouble out of state.
Yeah, they said they have a contracted network out of state, but their rates aren't as good. It doesn't matter which consultant we go with. If we go with PEHP as a carrier, we're going to have that issue through whichever consultant. The question for me is just a dollar, a savings amount. Like, can we save 12,000 here? Or with numbers that are current instead of 2 years old, would we have the same through our current insurance consultant?
Or possibly better.
Or possibly better. And I can't answer that. I don't have the answer to that. Like I said, if you would have asked me last Thursday before I had these numbers, it would have been a super easy.
I thought we were ready to go last
Yeah,
Thursday.
I did too.
So we reached back out, and GBS, we've been using them for years. They've been good. They're,
had 'em
as
for at
far
least
as
8 years.
reporting and everything, they've been good to the county. And so, in all fairness, it's like, well, we have these numbers, out there from another company. What is it that you can do for us? And they go, well, 2 years ago we presented this to you, and
due
we
to
could
COVID,
save
we
that
chose
money.
not to make that
The reason that we stayed is Regents and keeping with Regents. But now, really, if we're looking at moving to PHP, which we would have to or we would do that same thing with NRF or NFP. So if we're going to switch PHP, then let's look at switching NF with GBS as well to PHP, and can it be done? And GBS is like, well, yeah, it could be done. What we were originally going to do with NFP was turn everything over to them. They would then get the consulting fees and everything else, which at that last meeting, they presented it's about $3,000 a month. That's what we're paying GBS already, and so for me, it was, man, if GBS can keep us whole and match what we're doing, they're already tried and true with us. I don't have any
Then
problem.
We wouldn't have to move to PHP.
We wouldn't have. Well,
So if we're going to carve out our pharmacy, which is
We
where the
have to.
savings on our medical is going to come from, is taking our pharmacy benefit and moving it to another provider. We are going to have to leave Regents. Regents will not do that for us.
And Regents come
Whether-
back also, and Joe had mentioned the other day, as Regents is asking more per employee for this next year,
They're
and so
asking $1 more per employee, and then we also got our percent increase on our stop loss through.
so they're upping our fees, and so right now is a good time. But we just, if we stay with GBS, we can tell them go to bat for us and figure out PHP and what does that work, what does that entail. But we can't stay with Regents and have the pharmacy savings, and I think that pharmacy savings over
That's where our
$200,000
biggest
is
savings gonna be,
critical
is in
for us.
pharmacy.
And we need that money, and if we can get it with a carve out, then we can get it with a carve out, and so it helps, all in all. But we can turn it to GBS and have us go to bat or pick a different consultant.
When do we have to make a decision?
We need to know today.
Today's
if we're
the day.
If we're going to move, then in order to become part of the Pharmacy Coalition through NFP, we have to do that now. If we don't do that
But
now,
in order to become part of that coalition, we have to leave Regents.
no, we don't have to leave Regents. So Regents, the issue with Regents is we only have 130 members on our plan. And in order to carve out pharmacy, Regents requires a certain number. We don't reach that number. Now, the consultant, either one, could go out to market, say, hey, this is what we can find, take it to Regents and try to go to bat there and see if they'll play ball and let us carve out our pharmacy. But historically, both of them have said they won't. So that's, I think we're looking at, no matter what, leaving.
Well, the savings on the pharmacy was like $100,000.
Savings on the pharmacy through NFP's quote was $153,205. And 2 years ago, the highest one through GBS was $141,054. So I mean, it's substantial money. There's a lot of dollars that we spend on our medications that, like I said, the two that I talked to who are with NFP were super happy. Saratoga Springs said their back end was not as easy to work with as GBS is. They also did say that they had a lot of turnover as far as their account representative and stuff with NFP, so that could be where that came from. So I said, I do not have a 100% answer. This is what I want to do for you. So
Well, you can't give me that kind of a choice.
But it's total. It's your choice. That is above my pay grade, guys.
In all fairness, we haven't given GBS an opportunity to give us updated numbers on anything. A lot of it is when we heard that, the unbundle and bundle from NFP, that was, obviously something that we wanted to explore and look at. And I think in any opportunity you have to look at apples to apples and compare other companies with what you have. It's always a value added look. But I think after talking to GBS, they can match, the other company's offer. And he's like, yeah, let's go with that. Unless you guys are mad at us. Like, no, well, we're not mad at you. You haven't done anything wrong.
And
so,
that,
we
did
were just
not
exploring
have,
savings. And so
when I started my conversations with NFP in April, I did not have this information from GBS. I did not get this until Friday. So, I was super excited and totally on board with making this move. And then GBS comes back and says, well, we gave you these numbers 2 years ago and you said no.
Well, let's say yes this time.
Yeah, let's say yes to the savings this time. I agree. So
absolutely.
A little bit, approval. Who is going to be our consultant of record? Are we going to stay where we are? Are we going to move?
Can I make a public comment?
There's no public comments. We don't have GBS online to make comments either.
That was somebody from NFP.
NFP.
Yeah.
So I think we could work with GBS and
Okay, let's do it.
go through and talk to Joe and just see where his savings. And if there's not, then we jump ship and talk to NFP.
Yeah, no,
And
that's
so-
fine.
Okay.
So this year we'll keep
That's
our
what I'd
insurance,
recommend.
our consultant of record is GBS, and
Yeah.
see what they can do
Need
for
a
us.
motion?
Because we're not making a change, I
No.
don't think so. If we were making a change, we would need a motion to approve a new.
Okay. Hey, thanks for your hard work.
Hey, not a problem. Thanks for
Thank you,
listening to
exploring.
me. Give a
Call
spiel.
Clint on there as well and just see.
Okay.
From now on, you come to us and tell us, you need to do this.
Yeah.
Don't come and give me a choice.
I know all of a sudden once we spoke to GBS, it's like, oh,
Like I said, if you would have asked me Thursday,
Yeah.
it was a clear-cut answer. But
I know.
after Friday, it was not so much. So,
Okay.
but thanks, guys.
Okay.
Buy some chips.
Hey,
Next.
buy some of those old floaties for your arms in case you get in a fly well.
yeah, totally.
Number 13.
All right, number 13. Let me find where we're at. My documents. Number 13, consideration and approval of the lease agreement with David Churchill for the lease of the county hangar located at the Monticello Airport. This one here, we had issued a notice of award and intent to negotiate to David Churchill. He proposed leasing that airport hangar at $425 a month down at the Monticello Airport, which would bring in about $5,100 in revenue for the space where we used to have our county airplane located. There are FAA requirements and standards for what you can keep in a hangar, and so we've referenced that in the lease agreement so that they maintain that compliance with the FAA guidelines. Pretty standard lease on here. The one that's online and in your packet has been modified. We did modify some of the insurance requirements that I had in here. The insurance requirement initially had in here that the landlord or the tenant was going to have to provide insurance for all of the building. Instead, what he needs to provide is the all-risk property insurance, not keep it fully insured. And it was that fully insured language that was a problem, as well as down in the liability section for the risk. And so the assumption of risk, he didn't like the fact that it had gross negligence. If the county, basically he assumes all risk outside of the risk and the negligence on the county's behalf. He didn't like that word gross negligence, so I removed the word gross from there. Still, if our maintenance guys go over and maintain, there's negligence on behalf of our maintenance staff in the repair of, say, for example, a heater, then we still are negligent and responsible for that and can't waive that risk outside of all of those things that are covered under the governmental immunity. So those are the only two changes you really see from what you are presented with in this packet. And we have the updated contract for the signature today.
I need to ask Brittany a question. Isn't any negligence gross?
No.
Oh, there's difference between gross negligence and just negligence?
Yep.
Okay, I'm good. She says so. Okay, I'll make a motion. We approve this request or this lease agreement with David Churchill.
Okay, second. Any further question? There be none, all those in favor of the approving the lease agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Aye also. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 2 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, so there'll be a hanger in there. And
14.
that lease also provides there's another subtenant that wanted to lease that space with him, so it's big enough for 2 airplanes. And so whatever they do for the sublease, they allow. The lease allows for another tenant in there, and so that activates the airport, which is really what I like.
When we had the county plane in there, then Troy also had his private.
Okay, so 2 planes in there as well
yeah,
before.
there was 2 planes in
Okay,
there.
awesome. And that lease agreement allows for subleasing of that, and so. With that, on to the next item, you have the consideration and adoption of an ordinance that adopts the Board of Equalization Standards of Practice created and routinely amended by the State of Utah Property Tax Division for the administration of UCA 59-2-10. This one here, in the past for our Board of Equalization, we've always used these standards of practice that's on the Property Tax Division's website. They produce this every year and then they modify and amend it as often as they need to. The last amendment on here was April 2021, of which I put in the ordinance as well today, but also structured the language in the ordinance that if the Property Tax Division changes theirs, then ours also automatically adopts the latest version, so that we never have to go back and amend our ordinance. A lot of counties have kind of their own rules and regulations for the Board of Equalization. For me, I thought this was the most practical and the easiest, just to adopt what's already out there and what the State Tax Commission is already using. And so it just made sense to just follow in line with the standards that they produce and create and maintain. And then we don't have to make the adjustments. When I looked at, for example, like Kane County in their ordinance had different rules and steps to their Board of Equalization process, but then they had all these amendment dates, amendment in 2021, back in 2020 and 19, and it just so on and so forth. So it made it easier, I think, just to adopt in part this. As we see a lot of questions from business owners and residents, about their values and their properties and their taxes, I think by adopting this in a formal ordinance, it gives the clerk auditor, who's kind of responsible for now all of the requests for adjustments that come back or the appeals that come in. This gives him a formalized process. There's also rules in the state code that we're supposed to be adhering to, as far as, say, for example, if there is a conflict of interest and one of the properties is yours or a family member's, well, you have to declare a conflict of interest, but that conflict of interest also has to be declared in writing. It can't just be something that's given at the diocese or at the table at the time you're in Board of Equalization. It actually has to be something that's written, and it follows that appeal process even up to the State Tax Commission. And so I like the fact that it cements a lot of the rules of how that practice is supposed to be governed by state code. It also provides the the appeal deadlines that we have in here and the reporting requirements that our clerk auditor, our auditor, really in that capacity is supposed to do, and when he's supposed to get the final rolls up to the State Tax Commission there in October. And so it kind of gives us a guideline and a path that we can always use and always point to if, as the elected officials come and go, this is there, it's codified in our ordinance. One of the things to note in here that was kind of brought up earlier, is what can the Board of Equalization really do? What do they determine? And in here, it's specific in state code is the Board of Equalization. They may appoint a hearing officer, and we do have a hearing officer. If you remember back to when we approved the contract with the appraiser that went out and worked with our county assessor, in there, we also had the language in there that he would help us in those hearings because it's his appraisal. He's got to stand up and validate his work. And, because of that, we did carve out and put in the contract language that he would help us through that process. Well, this is one of those that is allowed, and it's cemented in here. When you go through and you look at these evaluations, really it specifically states in these rules and in state code that they have to have the burden of proof, and you mentioned that today in commission meeting, that they've got to bring in an appraisal or other evidence, to qualify and describe why they need the adjustment. But really, all the commissioners, when they come back to you as commissioners, is really all you get to do is look and review whether or not there was fault, and if there was fault, has that correction been made? And that's it. It doesn't give you an opportunity to say, well, that's my friend, I'm going to reduce his taxes by 2%. It doesn't give you that opportunity. By law, all you can really do is adjust and correct the errors, and that's what Board of Equalization does. But it gives you an opportunity, gives our property tax owners, our property owners, the ability to appeal those taxes, be heard, make the adjustments, and describe why they need to be adjusted to the hearing officer. That hearing officer, by affidavit, then should submit that to the commissioners as the Board of Equalization, and then you rule whether or not that was an error or not. So it kind of gives you guidelines as well as commissioners of what you can do in here as well. So it kind of cements the whole entire process. We've used this back as far as Norm that I can find when he was the clerk auditor. And now, to me, it was when people ask, we can now give them, if you adopt this ordinance, we can now give them this document as here's the rules, because there's a lot of confusion when, you get the notice that, hey, you can appeal. Well, what does that mean? And, is there a form? Well, there is a form, and the form is highlighted in here. There's a link to the website where there's a form that the clerk auditor, that Lyman's office can request these individuals to fill out, and items in it goes check by check what they can provide to contest, or to appeal those taxes. And so I think it'll help provide a little bit more clarity to the public on what they can do and what that process really represents and what the outcome, what they can expect with the outcome, good or bad. And then what's kind of in our purview to change and what can't be changed. Hopefully that makes a little bit more sense.
Okay, I'll make a motion. We adopt this standard of practice.
It is
Board of
an
Equalization.
ordinance.
Second.
Or ordinance.
Any further question? There be none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye also. Opposed, nay. Motion carries, 2 in favor, 0 opposed.
We need to go into Board of Equalization now.
We do.
I'll make a motion, we go into Board of Equalization.
Okay, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye also. Opposed, nay. 2 in favor. Zero opposed. We're now in Board of Equalization. So with that, who's presenting? Thank you.
Commissioners. I appreciate your time and Commissioner Adams' depth of knowing about the processes of appraisals and what we're doing. So one of the things that hope goes out to the world is my office is only about value. And that's what we're going to do with Board of Equalization. It's all about value, not anything about taxes. So it's just about the values of things. And so there is 3 processes for an appraisal. And what our commercial appraisal, and this is, and I was thinking about this, Gordon Lowe with his appraiser business probably was the first time in San Juan County's history that we had a commercial appraiser go out and actually do appraisals. So this is probably the first time this happened. And it's unfortunate, the timing, but it is finished, it is done. And we do have the Board of Equalization process in place that people can get a time to appear before our Judge Kelly. And so far, we still have openings on that Board of Equalization time. So there are slots still open. And because we're doing commercial appraisals on this, that we have to do them individually and they have to be private because some of the commercial businesses are going to bring their finances to the Board of Equalization. And that is a private record. And so, and that is one of the processes of appraisals is the income method. So they can bring their income into the Board of Equalization and say, hey, this is my income for the last couple of years, and approach the hearing officer with that information and he'll make a determination. So far, most of my communication with property owners and business owners, they said the appraisals have been done pretty good. They're pretty accurate. And also, our people from Bluff here this morning, some of the property values did go down. Land went up in value across the county, but a building that was depreciation, falling down or not repaired or something like that, actually lost value. So there are some businesses in Bluff that actually lost a little bit of value through this process. So what we're bringing here this morning or this afternoon before you commissioners for your approval is, again, we seen this coming about a month ago, that we needed to do a lot of assessor corrections. These are corrections. Some of these are from our commercial appraisal. People brought stuff in and they said this isn't correct, and we were adjust some of that. But in general, this is from my office and from Randy, my deputy assessor, looking at properties and going like, that's not correct, that's not correct. So we have about 300 of those this morning or this afternoon to adjust. Complete subdivisions, we've seen that were not correct. Home values. So Ann, the mayor of Bluff, called me. Thank you, Ann. I appreciate anytime anybody calls my office, we take their information to heart, we take it seriously, and we look at what's going on. And when you come down to what we do in May, when we close the tax roll, we have about 2 weeks to do that process. And we had to do about 4,000 things in 2 weeks. And so a lot of that adjustment is done by a computer, and the computer doesn't know that Bluff has alleyways. So on that second page, there's some, so the parcel numbers that have a C in front of the number is Bluff. Bluff parcels always start with a C. And so there's alleyways, and Mayor Lippinen has an alleyway by her house. The computer adjusted that up to 25,000. We said that's not correct. We'll reduce it back to last year's value of 5,000. So there was a number of those. We had Liza with Cow Canyon Trading Post here this morning. Her parcel, which was not on the commercial appraisal, it was her parking lot. The computer adjusted it up to $25,000. We looked at that and said, that's not correct. So we reduced it back to $4,500, which was last year's value. So many of these corrections, we reduce those back to last year's values, or you're going to have this too, commissioners. You're going to have people come and tell you that, hey, my home lot, 1 acre out in the county went up to $25,000. Well, we looked at a lot of these things that we had to get even out here. A lot of these parcels were 8,000, 6,000. Some were 20,000, some were 25 actually. And so to drill a well and put a septic system on, to buy the land, put electricity on those lots, it's more than 25,000, but we thought 25,000 was more than correct for this year's valuations. So commissioners, do you have any questions? This is a large amount of, well, take for instance, we had Pudge Pearson come in on his property, which is towards the end. You know, Clarence, he said his property had a big goalie in it. He said, yeah, that's correct. Let's reduce it down. So anytime people can bring evidence to my office that the values should not be there, we will take that into account. Phil Lyman's property on the first page there. In Blanding, a lot in Blanding, improved lots, $43,000 for electricity, water, sewer, and roads. His properties need a lot of work on them, so we reduced those back down to $5,000 per lot because of the location. Location is very bad. It's on a steep hill, and so anyway, commissioners, take some time, look at those. Any questions on any of those parcels, any of that information we can go over and talk about in this public meeting. This is public information. Anything that starts with an A is in Monticello. Anything that starts with a B is in Blanding. And anything that's out in the county will either have 3 zeros or 2 zeros and then some numbers. That's a subdivision. And anything that's just loose in the county will just have the 34S or 35S. We'll have the township first, and then the range, and then the section, and the 4 computer numbers after that. So we have to have 12 numbers on our parcels. 12 numbers or letters. So there's Dorothy Levitt in Monticello. Nancy Maryboy was Devil's Canyon. She had some property there. We've had people have houses burned down that we take off the property rolls. Houses removed. Houses built. One of the big part of an assessor is putting the new houses onto the system. And so far I found 3 houses. One house, again, has been there about 10 years, which I'll bring up to the next BOE, because we're going to go through BOEs until we're to the end of September.
Question.
Yes, Commissioner.
Let's say for example, number 1,
Yes.
your current value is 25.
Yes.
There's 2 properties.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the corrected value is 3,000.
Yes. So
does that indicate 3,000 minus
No, so many of these corrections was that a person. So, for instance, this is Kedrick Red. This is property at the Blanding the Dude Ranch, between here and Blanding. You have to have 1 acre of land to build a house on. These two parcels are less than half an acre. They're like a quarter acre. So you can't build a house on them. So it takes the value down when you can't develop the property. These are right next to his property, which he's purchased in the past. And what we call this is backage. It's somebody's backyard or somebody's front yard or somebody's side yard. They can't build a house on it. They can't develop it, but there is still value in the property. So we take that $25,000 that the computer put on that, and we put it back to last year's value. So it's not a subtraction. It's just a change. Just from 25,000 down to 33. Was it 3,300? Yes.
3,300. It's a change in valuation.
Yeah. Can't get to the property. It's back. So on the last, I've got Roy and Darlene Smith. I've got a whole subdivision, Pioneer subdivision in Blanding, that their backyards went up to $24,750. Well, that doesn't seem correct to me because it's their backyards or their front yards in some cases. So you'll see a whole lot of those being dropped to $5,000, $5,000, $5,000, $5,000, $5,000, because it's all about a quarter acre lot. And
But that's not the value they were being taxed on. It's the computer's the one that made the mistake, right?
yes,
I mean, they've never had to pay that
no,
on that evaluation.
no,
You're just changing the computer mistakes, is what
yes.
you're telling us.
On 90% of these are computer mistakes. 90% of this. Mm-hmm.
Computer bits. I thought computer never makes a mistake.
A person has to put the stuff in the
Human
computer.
is operating
A human is operating on
So, for
the
instance,
computer.
yes,
So-
the person operates the computer. You're correct, Commissioner.
It's just the program. It's the program itself.
So we have Flatiron Mesa, a whole big subdivision, which is increasing in value. It's towards Moab, up towards Spanish Valley. But there's a certain portion of that subdivision that's just pure rock. And it's very hard to put a septic system on rock. And so we looked at those properties and went like, okay, the house is sitting there. So this house, so some of these lots actually are $90,000 for the property underneath the house. So again, we're saying it's the well, it's the septic, it's electricity, it's the development of that lot. And then the rest of the property around, we reduced in value because it was a difficult lot. It's just not a great piece of property. It's hard to develop. So Flatiron Mesa, Bridger Jack Mesa.
Were these notices originally sent out based on what the computer generated?
Yes, that's correct.
So those people were really shook up, weren't they?
Yes. I've had lots of calls on these, and it's nice telling them, hey, we're working on it. We understand, and we're going to do something about this. We're going to reduce the values. Now, some of them called and said, we don't like your value, but we agree with your value. Can we get the commissioners to reduce our taxes? And I say, well, that's a commissioner problem. I just do values. Taxes are
Certified
school
tax
boards and commissions and boards of health and different places. So you take we had Daniel and Marty Shoup. They had a trailer burned down years ago, and they said this isn't right. So that 0070, that is Flatiron Mesa. So there's the whole mesa we had to redo, every lot. So there's about 40 or 50 lots there. And then the 0038, that is Flatiron Mesa. Again, we did every single lot up there. And hopefully people will say, hey, thank you. We said your cliffs, can't build a house on a cliff. it's got a value still, but it's not what we thought it would, what was there in the past or what the computer put on it. So it's a very important job. It's very, very important we keep this correct and up to date. So a lot of the mistakes were roads, alleyways, easements. They have a value, but not $25,000, maybe $500.
Can we make motion in Board of Equalization?
Okay,
Can I make a motion, we accept these changes as presented?
motion is made by Mr. Adams to accept and approve the changes that are made. Board of Equalization report. With that.
And to
second.
straighten out the computer mistake.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, we found out you can't do 4,000 things in a short period of time. You got to stretch this out a little further.
Throw the computer out the window.
Okay, so
Won't make another mistake.
with your approval, commissioners, I will adjust these on our computer. We got to go back in and adjust these on the tax roll.
Okay.
Lyman Duncan will make me new notices, corrected notices, and we'll get those out as soon as possible.
I second the motion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 2 in favor, 0 opposed. Next.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, appreciate
We're
it.
still in Board of Equalization, aren't we?
We are.
Hey, we're not done.
Oh,
There's
We
still
gotta
another
do
one.
the low
Low
income
income.
abatement list.
This is where Lyman's. He's values. Lyman's the tax.
But we're still in Board of Equalization.
We are, absolutely.
As you'll notice on the screen, I created an Excel file with almost 100 names that have filled out TC-9DCY, which is the State Tax Commission form for individuals to apply for low income abatements and homeowner tax credit. So they have to meet several requirements. First, have to own their property, be living on the property as of January 1st. They can be, it can be approved if it's under age 66 and they're disabled, or under extreme hardship. And the income for these individuals cannot exceed $35,807 for this year's abatement. So we have a lot of individuals here that have filled out the forms, and I've reviewed them, placed them on this Excel file, and ask you for your approval at this time. Once I have your approval, like Rick stated, I'll go back into the system. I'll make these as permanent adjustments. Then we'll send out new abatement forms to them, and then I'll probably come back one more time with a much smaller group. Then at that point, I'll send all of these names to the Utah State Tax Commission, and they will return most of the abatements back to us, and we'll be able to cover it. So a lot of it is covered by the state and low income. So.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the list of abatement or as presented by the county clerk.
Okay, second. I second. There's a question? Go ahead.
Can I ask a question, Commissioners? Lyman, do these people, I get this question too, do these people have to apply every single year?
Yes, veterans do not, but everybody else has to come back and reapply.
But the veterans do not?
Yeah. A disabled veteran from 10% disability or more, we automatically keep them in the system.
Okay.
But as far as abatements for individuals, they need to come back each year and fill these forms out again.
Go ahead and apply.
Because that's what the assessor's office is gonna do is, I'm gonna make a list of all the roads and properties that are, so we don't have to BOE on them every year. We can just make sure we don't adjust them
The alleyways.
and waste
Yeah.
our time.
Yeah. Especially
Okay.
alleyways.
Any other question? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye also. Opposed, nay. Motion carried, 2 in favor, 0 opposed.
Make a motion, we come out of Board of Equalization.
Motion made by Mr. Adams to exit the equalization, Board of Equalization. Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye also. Opposed, nay. We're out of the Board of Equalization. Passed, 2 in favor, 0 opposed.
Like to make a motion, Rick Meyer buys lunch today.
I could.
With that, any report?
I'm going to USIP meeting this week up to Salt Lake. That's all I've got to report.
Thank you. Well, my report is also just local. The only one that I attended was the 7-county infrastructure, so. At the spur of the moment, I got a call information and got on the waves and attended. And
Good.
that was about it. Other than that, it's just local chapter meetings and school board meetings. That's about it.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion made by Mr. Adams to adjourn. I second it. Time at 12:58. So, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.